Hey guys, I am Pixel Dan, and this is a look at the Masters of the Universe Revelation Savage, He-Man, and Orko 2-pack, part of the Masterverse series. So this was kind of a fun little surprise announcement as part 2 of Revelation was hitting. A lot of folks were specifically wondering about Orko, so this is a cool way to finally give us Orko while also giving us the Savage version of He-Man that we saw in part 2 of that show. So the figures come in a nice window box here with the Masterverse name up here at the top. Same kind of blue with the hieroglyphics type look that we've seen from all of the figures in this series so far. And as we roll around on the sides, we've got some beautiful artwork going down the side there of both Savage, He-Man, and Orko. And that continues around to the back side there with that super buff Savage He-Man. Awesome shout out to my buddy Eamon O'Donoghue for the awesome artwork there. We've also got a blurb about Savage He-Man and a cross-sell showing some of the other figures available and coming out soon, like the Triclops there. So let's go ahead and get these two figures pulled out of the window box, and we will get a closer look at them. I do want to go ahead and start with the tape measure. Bring that in here just so you can see, just like all the other figures in this line, Savage He-Man here stands at about 7 inches tall, while Orko is just shy of 6 inches from the top of his hat. Now that's with him on the included clear base. The figure itself is only about 4 inches tall, so he is a bit shorter there. We're going to move him to the side. We're going to come back to Orko in a little bit, and we're going to start by focusing on Savage He-Man here. So, this, of course, is inspired by the moment in the Revelation series where we got to see Adam transform into this raw version of the Grayskull power, which turned him into this savage, hulking He-Man. And this, of course, is a nod to the original origin for He-Man that dates back to those old mini comics in the toy line before we got Filmation, before there was a Prince Adam. It was a He-Man who came from a savage tribe. So that's kind of what this is a cool little nod to. I thought it was neat to see that within the show, and it's kind of cool to see it brought to life in action figure form. Of course, we had this in the Classics line as well, where they gave him the name Ular, so I guess this is kind of like Ular. This is a new version of Ular in the Masterverse line. Now, one thing I will say that I was kind of surprised by while looking at this, I want to bring the standard He-Man in here standing side by side because I want to show you guys that the body is reused from the standard He-Man figure. So it is the same torso, the same arms, the same legs. The differences, of course, include the loincloth, but also we've got the bare feet, we've got some different hands there as well, and the new head sculpt. But it's really interesting to see that they just reused the exact same body. One of the reasons I say that is because in the series, this version of Savage He-Man was huge. He was the really big, really hulked out creature, and well, this version doesn't really seem that way since it just uses that same He-Man body. And as I've mentioned before, this version of He-Man does feel a lot more thin, a lot more toned in than we've seen a lot of He-Man figures from the past. I'm kind of surprised that Mattel didn't reuse the Skelegod body for this with some new parts so that he was taller and more hulked out the way he appeared in the series, because this was supposed to be the one that, could go toe-to-toe with Skelegod. They were both big hulking creatures there. So honestly, I'm a bit let down that they used the same He-Man body for this particular figure. He does have these new hands here. Now, he does have interchangeable hands, so we can also pop on the standard gripping hands here. But you can see we got these big open hands, and we've also got these really big feet. They are huge. Kind of disproportionate, but I guess if he's like a savage character, maybe like a caveman style character, I guess the bigger feet and the bigger hands aren't that big of a deal. You can also see there's sort of like a brown wash throughout the figure. I guess that's supposed to make him look a little grimier or dirtier. I don't know. It's kind of interesting looking. I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. It is what it is. I do really like the head sculpt on this one. I like that he's got the longer hair, and actually I think it's a bit of a better face than what we got on the standard release He-Man. Again, bringing that in side by side, just because I thought the smile and everything looked a little odd on that one, and the shape of the hair definitely seemed a little off. I don't know, I really like this one. Now, here's the one downside I find with it. The way that the hair is sculpted on the back and the fact that it's so hard and rigid, this He-Man is always looking downwards. I can't get his head positioned really to be looking straight. It's like he's always looking down no matter what stance I get him in. Now, I will say the head is still removable. And if you want to swap that onto your regular He-Man body, it's actually a pretty cool look for the character. I actually kind of like that longer hair. And it sort of reminds me of the Four Horsemen's original redesign for He-Man back in the 2002 era before we got the more anime-styled hair in that series. They originally drew him with like longer hair, and that's almost what this looks like to me. So, I don't know, kind of cool. Some customization possibilities for you guys there. So otherwise, the articulation is pretty much exactly what you'd expect. I mean, the head is almost useless there because of the really rigid hair that he's got. You can still turn it left or right, kind of, but you can see the hair really does get in the way. There's not a lot of range of motion there. But the arms do go outwards, forwards, backwards. Swivel at the elbow, you got the double joints there. Swivel at the bicep, double joints at the elbow. You got the swivel at the wrist, you got the hinges at the wrist there. Torso's got that ball joint, you can swivel at the waist. Legs can go outwards, forwards, backwards, swivel at the thigh, double joints at the knees. You do still have a swivel at his calf, which totally breaks up the sculpt. It looks really weird, but, you know, it helps with the articulation for the posing. And then the ankles, forwards, backwards, and side to side with those big old bare feet there. So honestly, the joints feel pretty good on this figure. None of them feel overly loose, so that works out just fine. Couple accessories here, and for that, I'm going to go ahead and swap on a gripping hand because we do get the axe with this figure. Now, there was a scene where we got to see him use an axe, which again, great nod to the original He-Man, where the axe was the primary weapon, not the sword. That was before Filmation changed the sword to kind of being the standard there. So you can pair him up with the axe if you want to. In addition to that, we also get a spear. Now, the spear is another nod to that original mini-comic He-Man or Ular, whatever you want there. So a couple of options for display with this figure as far as the weapons go. Alright guys, it's comparison time. I mentioned that Masters of the Universe Classics got an Ular figure, which is their jungle He-Man or their savage He-Man, so I thought I'd go ahead and pair those two side by side, just so you could see what these two figures look like together. So I'm going to jump on over to the included Orko now. All in all, I think this is a pretty good representation of the way Orko appeared in the animation. Once again, they've got him with this crazy little magic cloud thing in order to get his levitation there. I am happy that this time it is clear and not purple or blue. I think I'd still prefer something a little more basic, but this is totally fine. I do like that it's clear, so I can be nitpicky all I want to. I do like this quite a bit. Now, it's an articulated arm, and I will say it's a bit loose. You can see it flops around a little bit there, and both here and there's also a hinge up there where it plugs into Orko, and both of those do seem to be a bit looser than they should, which does cause him to kind of fall over sometimes, so you really got to get him balanced the right way. At least that's how it is with mine. You can remove that. You can just actually pop it out of the peg there. So if you want to, you can just kind of set them down on the ground, or maybe you can find a different way to display them on your shelf with a different device that's hoisting him up so it looks like he's floating if you want to swap that out instead. So let's go ahead and plug that back in for right now while we finish looking at this guy. So otherwise, articulation is as follows. The ball joint on the head just allows it to roll all the way around. Of course, it allows you to see a bunch of Orko's face there that we typically don't usually see. It does appear that it is removable. You can actually still pop it off the joint there. And let's have some fun here. So let's bring He-Man back over here. It does appear like the ball joints might be the same size. Let's give it a good test. Let's do that, shall we? Let's see. Can we put Orko's head on He-Man's? Well, we can. Here, let's actually see if we can actually bring the scarf over too. This could be funny. Okay, so the scarf doesn't fit all the way down on He-Man's body, but I will say that the head does plug onto the ball joint. It fits on there pretty good, so that could make for some fun customizations as well if you want to. So aside from the head there, the arms just have the joints up there at the shoulder so they can go outwards, forwards, and backwards, but there's no other articulation in the arms whatsoever there. Nothing in the wrists, nothing in the elbows. I guess it's because they are so skinny there. They're thin, so they didn't really want to add too much articulation to that. All in all, it's a pretty fine Orko figure. I like it quite a bit, honestly, and the scale seems pretty good when you stand him alongside the other figures. He actually looks like he's about the size that he was portrayed as in the show. Maybe he could be a little bit smaller, but I don't know. All in all, I like this quite a bit. All right, guys, it's comparison time again, because now we got to see this Orko alongside all the other Orko action figures we've received throughout the years, just so you can see how these guys all line up side by side. And there you go, my friends. That is a look at the Savage He-Man and Orko 2-pack. It's an interesting set. It's certainly not a bad set by any means. I do feel like the Savage He-Man could have been a little bit better. I understand reuse of parts. It's very common in Masters of the Universe, but I would have liked to see him have that bigger, more muscular build, be taller, be kind of more opposing to Skelegod the way he appeared in the series, since these are inspired by that animation. I think he could have been a lot bigger and less with that slender build that we saw with the regular release of He-Man. I like the Orko quite a bit. I think he looks pretty good, and I'm glad they found a way to include him in the line so we can kind of round out some of the main characters we got in that new series. So this set is hitting right now. I ordered mine from Big Bad Toy Store. So happy hunting, my friends, and until next time.